Welcome back. You should have already read the Topic 2 introduction and completed procedures 1 and 2. If you haven't already done so, please pause your video and complete these steps before moving on. We are going to start procedure 3 now, the unplugged activity Journey Through the Route Cipher. For this unplugged activity, I know I'm going to need material 321. And I can find it in the Google Drive under Chapter 3 materials. I can see that I will need to print enough copies of 321 so that each student will have their own copy. The implementation guide suggests that the teacher pace this activity so that all students are working on the same page, and gives a script for each step because we found that some students needed extra support for this activity. Step 1 gives instructions for the first page. On this page, students will decipher the root ciphers. Please reference the script in the guide while I use material 321 to explain this activity. We suggest that you explain the boxes to the students. Box 1 has the root and box 2 has the ciphertext. Then tell students to copy that root from box 1 to 2 and connect the letters in box 2. Students will follow the root to write down the plain text. In this example, the plain text is search for. We suggest all the students should work on step 1 and then wait for instructions before moving on to the second page. If we do the next example, students will take their pencil and follow the root in numerical order. Then they'll copy the root to the second box and then use their pencil to follow the root and write the plain text. In this example, that's the pattern. Step 2 in the guide gives instructions for the second page where students will encipher root ciphers. Please reference the script in the guide while I use material 321 to explain this activity. We suggest you explain that now students will hide the plain text as ciphertext. They will create a secret message. Tell students they will draw a line in box 1 to connect the numbers from 1 to 9 and create the root. They will then follow that root in box 2 to write down the plain text and create an enciphered message. Some students found it helpful to copy the root over to the second box before they wrote in the letters. Again, we found it helpful to have all students working on step 2 before they were given instructions for how to complete the next step. In this example, the plain text is adventure, and I would follow the root here in numerical order. And then in this grid, I would write the letters plain text, adventure, in numerical order to create ciphertext. So because 1 is here, I start with the first letter in plain text in this box, A. 2 is right down, and the next letter of plain text is D. And I would continue going until I put all the letters of adventure into grid 2. Step 3 will also have a script in the guide. In this step, learners will make their own root. They will draw a root in box 1 that will cover all the boxes and use numbers 1 through 9 to show the order of the root. Then they will follow the root they just made in box 2 to encipher the plain text and make a secret message or ciphertext. So in this example for solutions, they would create their root in grid 1 any way they want, and then use that root to encipher plain text solutions. Because I started here, S will go here, and then O, and I'd follow the route. As you can see, the description of this unplugged activity has the teacher reinforcing the vocabulary: route, ciphertext, plaintext, N-cipher, and decipher. In the next procedure, students will practice what they just learned in the tablet app. Please pause your video, unlock the screen, and complete procedure 4 on your own. Resume the video when you get to the locked screen, number 4. Procedure 5 is the unplugged group activity, Routes to Win the War. This activity will use material 322, which is found in the drive and other materials. I can click this link in the PDF to jump to the bottom of the PDF and see what other materials I will need. I see I will need transparency paper and envelopes. When I take a look at 322 in the drive, I see instructions for how to set up this activity. I will print this PDF with the routes on transparency paper. And I will print this PDF on regular printing paper. This activity has students working in 4 groups, and each group will get 2 sets of routes and ciphers. I can cut out the routes and ciphers and put them in envelopes labeled groups 1, 2, 3, and 4 before class. In class, the guide explains how to introduce this activity to learners. We suggest the teacher explain that each envelope has routes and ciphers, but we aren't sure which route belongs to which cipher. The learner should compare the size and shape of the routes with the cipher to find ones that match, and rotate the routes until they find the route that successfully deciphers the ciphertext to make a plain text message. Each route has a box in the corner that says up to help them orient the route correctly. This makes the activity a little easier. The PDFs also have a very large teacher practice that you can use to show your students how to complete this activity. In this example, I show you first how the route was placed incorrectly. Then I rotate the route to find the correct orientation. If you follow along, the plain text in this example is "the route cipher was." Learners can write down the plain text when they have deciphered both messages. When the entire class is done, you can have learners read their plain text aloud in group order. The entire message comes together to give additional historical context about how the route cipher was used in the U.S. Civil War, and the key is located in the guide. Great job! We are done with topic 2, and you can now move on to topic 3.